Joining us now is Jane Harman, who at the time of those attacks was serving on the House Intelligence Committee. She was Democratic member and is now president of the Woodrow Wilson Center. Jane Harman, thanks very much for joining us. At the moment of the attacks, there was this extraordinary outpouring from the rest of the world. I remember the headlines in the French newspapers saying, "We are all Americans," and countries offering America support. Could America in that moment have responded differently to the attacks and really made unusual and lasting alliances around the world?
The answer to that, Cuddy, is yes. The hindsight is always better, and I surely remember where I was heading to the dome of the Capitol, which most believe was the target of the last plane, the one that went down in Shanksville. Heading to that dome to meet with the Intelligence Committee. I was co-chair of a subcommittee on terrorism and a member of one of the committees that predicted a major attack on U.S. soil. So it was devastating. I also was trying to reach my youngest child who was in school in Washington. Cell towers were down. She now works in One World, which is the skyscraper in New York that has replaced the trade towers. At any rate, yes, to remind everyone, Iran, Cuba, and every country in the world condemned the attacks and offered assistance. NATO invoked Article 5, which is the Common Defense Article, without even asking the U.S., just did it. They were all with us. And America was together, too. Congress stood on, I was there, on the steps of the Capitol and saying, "God bless America," on a bipartisan basis. And the things that we did right after, all the comments after the devastation were about America under attack, not the Republicans under attack or the Democrats under attack. So looking back, it's a huge missed opportunity to use our soft power to win the argument. Some of the decisions we made were good, but in hindsight, a number of them, including labeling what happened as the war on terror and calling three countries the axis of evil, hardened, I think, the response rather than enabled many people to come to our side.
Did the war on terror then not make America safer?
Well, some of our responses made America safer. I think some of our responses, like putting a prison at Guantanamo Bay, Cuba, and enacting a series they weren't laws because Congress was basically cut out of this. Our president used his commander-in-chief authorities. A series of practices having to do with interrogations and detentions didn't make us safer. Created a more negative view of America, a poster, if you will, of why they hate us. And I think we missed opportunities to make the case in positive terms for what America stands for. We're doing better in some ways, but some of our policies, keeping immigrants out or certain immigrants, are sending a signal that America is an armed fortress, and I don't think that that's helpful.
But Jane, when you look back at where we were in 2001, the Al-Qaeda posed a great threat. It was an organised unit in Afghanistan, and it could have been, everybody predicted there would be more organised attacks on the United States. And what we've had since then have been a series of attacks, and it's gone on over those 17 years. It's certainly not taken the threat away, but it's been at a lower level. And we've been talking about lone wolves rather than an organised unit like Al-Qaeda. So in that sense, surely the war on terror has worked.
Well, it has worked. There is no longer one top-down structure of the terror movement. It's now a loose affiliation of horizontal affiliation of groups. I would say that there are more terror organizations than there were. Their lethality is reduced, and that is a great credit to law enforcement, intelligence, and some dedicated officials in America and in Europe and elsewhere in our Homeland Security departments. But still, the recruiting devices that terror movements have now moved from the ground to the web. And they're very effective in recruiting not just lone wolves, but groups, small groups, and in exploiting failed states and failing states in Africa and in the Middle East to get more to their side.